7 centers inside University Center for International Studies. We are supported by the US government, among other places, and our job is to train the next generation of experts in Eastern Europe, in Eurasia, and in Central Asia. I myself grew up within this system. I'm a product of this system, and precisely at the time when it makes the most sense to shut it down is the time when we need the experts the most keenly for what is, after all, the biggest country in the world, as well as those countries that it happens to visit in such a assaultive and genocidal fashion, which is why we're here today. Anniversary is not a good word for this because, of course, anniversary for us is a word that we tend to associate with being happy, with celebrating. This is clearly not a celebration. It's not really, in that sense, a commemoration either. It's a marking of the 1-year anniversary in what will turn out to be surely a fairly long haul, to the extent that we can figure it out. If you all listen to the experts, I think you will see that there's common agreement on that. Throughout the entire United States, this anniversary is being noted in all the different CREEES centers, so to speak, across the country and, in fact, across the world. It's curious to me how they choose each of the centers, and there's 11 of us all together in the United States, federally funded major research centers. It was curious to me how they each chose to celebrate it, to look at it, to commemorate it, to mark it, however one wants to say it. For the most part, you will find, if you happen to take the time to look, that it tends to be marked with national costumes, with sunflowers, with poetry readings, concerts, embroidery, and so forth. This is a very important way to mark the year-long event because it is, after all, national memory. There are those people out in the world that use a phrase I like very much, memory activists. And it's that group of people that so often turn to national costume and wreaths and flowers and sunflowers and national poetry to mark this kind of event. What you're at here today is something different. We're not doing that. We're doing an event that's marked by 3 qualities. The first quality is that it's contemporaneity. It's marked by the contemporary experience of people, including those people that are here in the room right now. People that you might stand in the line for coffee with, or wait for the bus with, or pass in the hall at Postbar, but are actually people who have a deep, deep treasury of memories about which they're going to speak just a little today. People who, if I can ask actually the 5 of you to raise your hands briefly, just so we know who you are sitting here. Yaroslav, Oiva, and so forth, so we know who you are. You'll hear from them in a moment. So the first feature is that it's a very contemporary event, unlike the deep history that you'll see at the other centers. The second distinguishing feature is that it's diverse. Its emphasis is on diversity, not on uniformity of yellow and blue or certain patterns of embroidery, but the diversity of contemporary Ukrainian society. And the third quality I would conjure up is that we aim to produce what I might describe as a kind of kammer event, a chamber event, like a chamber music or a chamber instrument or a chamber orchestra, that thing that is smaller, that doesn't aim towards display, noise, bombast, prophecy, hectoring, peroration, but rather gives a space that is quieter, that is more intimate, that is open to interiority, that creates an opportunity for people, if they want to speak about what's going on inside them, in their private space of their soul and their heart, they will, among a smaller group of people, in a quieter space, be able to talk about those experiences. So what is normally done is great. What we're doing is something that it sets out to be quite different. It's an event that stresses creativity, artistry, and imagination, above all. The one thing it's also not is it's not an open mic. Downtown at 5:30, there's a rally, and I encourage you to go to that rally and use the open mic. This is not an open mic event. We very carefully invited 5 people who will speak today, and our job here is to listen actively and to witness some of the things they're going to talk about. It's also clearly not a protest. There'll be moments in which there will be elements of protest, but we don't set out to create a protest. As I say, 5:30 downtown today, we will see you there. It's a 2-part event. The first part is art, and we'll get to that in just a second, and the second part is testimony. Before we go into the introduction of those two parts, I just want to make sure that I take time to thank the people that were absolutely instrumental in bringing all this together, whether it's moving the chairs, or schlepping in the food, or bringing you here, or publicity, or all the different elements that make this event happen. That includes, first of all, GOSEKA, the graduate organization for the study of Eurasia and Central Asia. In particular, Joe Patrick, the president of GOSEKA, Sarah Roch, Sarah here? No. And Belinda. The three of them were instrumental in this collaboration between CREEES and GOSEKA. The second cluster is the USIS cluster. Molly McSweeney, Mark Wetzel, Zita Toth-Schrago, Rebecca Dial, and Misha Appleton, and of course, Zuzana Magdo. The REES team plus our allies that helped in setting everything up. And then finally, a non-institutional cluster of colleagues and friends and family members who have done a lot of the heavy lifting. This is a group of Ukrainians, of Russians, of people like me that are neither Ukrainian nor Russian, but come from a family background of in-laws that are on the one hand Kharkovchanki, and on the other hand Moscow intelligentsia. But all of these joining hands with each other, not being divided by, how shall I put it, criticism from this or that side, but in solidarity with each other, bringing about this event with every bit of energy and grace and elegance and empathy and generosity of spirit that it's possible for us to do. This is not a place for Russian scapegoating, and it's also not a place for bringing up critique of the war. This is a place for witnessing people's experiences and looking at some of the artwork that's come out of this. Artwork by professional Kiev women artists. So the first half of the event, I will be introduced to you by two people whom I'll introduce in a second. And they'll talk about the art that you're going to look at. It will be about 20 minutes of artwork with commentary. And then the second half of the event will be witnessing by five colleagues that have stepped forward and agreed to talk a little bit about what their life and family life and experiences are in Ukraine today. So that's the scaffolding that we're working towards. The two that will introduce the art, the first is an art expert, a curator, and the second is a practicing artist who is also a lawyer. The art expert is Marina Belenky, who has a PhD in art history from the Institute of Art History. She was the head of stage design department at Theater Union and taught art at the Moscow Art School and other colleges. She has extensive experience in leading international summer schools in the US, Europe, and elsewhere, including the Stanislavski Summer School in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Theaterland in Riga, Latvia. She served as an instructor and teacher for language, speech, dialect, and pronunciation in the master's program at Carnegie Mellon School of Drama. She's produced numerous workshops at Boston, New York, Valencia, London, and developed various international educational projects. Now, before I turn the microphone over to Marina, let me introduce the second of the two presenters. So Marina is the art expert, the other is a practicing artist. Sasha Phillips believes that art is a powerful advocacy tool that can be used in every language and every culture across the globe. She's a 2010 graduate of Pitt Law and is an attorney with the International Trade Group at Denton, Cohen and Grigsby. She's also a visual artist and an arts-based wellness advocate. She finished her Master's of Liberal Arts at Harvard with a focus on industrial and organizational psychology. As an artist, Sasha participated in numerous national and international solo and juried exhibits, including Art Against Violence at the Venice Biennale in 2019. Recently, Sasha received the prestigious Have a Heart Humanitarian Award from the Oil Painters of America and curated several art advocacy events, including Art, Law, Science, Community Against Violence, with the Pittsburgh nonprofit Alina's Light. If you remember, Alina was the young Russian woman who was murdered about 3-4 years ago. And also Make a Mark campaign for Mark Fogel, who was wrongfully detained in Russia and remains there today. Finally, Sasha founded Art Wellness Advocates, which provides art wellness programming for professionals working in high-stress environments. In her presentation today, Sasha is using artwork generously shared by the VITA.UKR human rights organization based in Milan, Italy. So first we'll hear from Marina, and then Marina will pass the microphone to Sasha and we'll look at the artwork. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dzień
Thank you, Nancy. I'm originally from Moscow, but my part of my family is Ukrainian. Can you hear me? Well, okay. Irina, yes? Okay. So it's my tribute to my Ukrainian family and my friends in Ukraine. A year has passed since a disastrous war in Ukraine began. Russia has attacked a sovereign neighboring country with uniquely close history, ethnic, culture, linguistic tradition. It is ongoing manslaughter in plain sight in the war community, with loss of life among civilians unseen since the Second World War. One stumbles in search of words to describe the unspeakable barbarity on the Russian invasion and atrocities perpetrated in Bucha, Mariupol, Kherson, and other areas of Ukraine. The Ukrainian people have demonstrated unbreakable resistance in the face of this merciless aggression. And the form of the resistance are multi-faced. It is a heroism of soldiers defending the town and villages of their homeland. The unflinching professionalism of surgeons operated on the victims of heavy bombardment of multiple civilian targets, and also the talent of creative artists preserving the light of humanity in the time of darkness and medieval cruelty. Ukrainian artistic tradition dates back of old time, its ancient time, its architecture and churches and cathedrals and icon paintings. And more modern time as 20th century begin, like Kazimir Malevich, one of the creators of Surrealism, David Burlyuk, one of the founders and of Futurism, Sonia Delaunay and Alexandra Exter, the bright representative of Constructivism. These names belong to Ukraine. Their art in the world treasure. The 20th century art tradition in Ukraine is stemming from a much older tradition of folk in the form of wooden painting, embroidery, pottery, and jewelry. In 1992, the world's first exhibition in space is being held and is being made by artists from Ukraine, Lvov, Podolchak. The exhibition of 3 paintings was placed in infrastructure where there were no familiar space and culture references. Since 2001, Ukrainian artists have been representing their country in Pavilion International exhibition in Venice Biennale and also a major international exhibition. Over the past decade, Ukrainian artists have traveled a lot and exhibited around the world. There are museums of Ukrainian art, galleries. Artists received internship and pension in various associations of arts and active members of artistic life of the world. Today, the artist said, art helped us realize what we're going through, says Ukrainian artist Olga Morozova. Art captured people's experience. This is important for preservation of memory and transmission through generation. It's true form and through form. As art is much more difficult to manipulate than rewrite the history. Darina Mamot said, drawing war for me it's like a therapy. First at all, it is a way to express feeling and emotion. I just put them out of myself. We will see one of slides, Ukrainian artist Yana Dagler.
Microphone, microphone.
I'm sorry. You will see one of slides, Ukrainian artist Yana Dagler. She said, war does not choose who injure, She touched everyone with extraordinary cruelty. So, when the soul hurts, we seem to be whole on the outside, but multiplied inside. And even one who is not physically injured is destroyed morally. The gathering of artworks draw a lineage of Ukrainian art created from iconic Ukrainian sources to connection to international art discourse. These artists' practice do not accept imperial reality and actively created a new reality with trailblazing vision, social commentary, and often non-conformist approaches. The selection highlights culture, resistance, and heroism of everyday creative perspective of curiosity and ingenuity.
Thank you again.
And I will get up and walk around for this because that's what I normally do. If we can start the slides rolling. I'm not going to talk about every single one. I invite you to look at the slides and into your program as well. And for the names of the artists who are present on the slides in your program, you can look them up. Most of them are available online. They're fairly well known. Or you can go to the VITA.UKR organization in Milan, and so they have quite a collection there. A couple of these artists are also presented here live or in person, so to speak. We have artworks by Oля Rondak, who also appears as the second slide in the presentation. These are the three of her war women. As part of this project, she speaks to women who experienced the violence of war, and she interviews them. But instead of recording this, and we'll talk about this in just a second, instead of recording their accounts, she actually draws their portraits. And this is as much of a story as every written word. You can look at those faces, you can look at those faces, you can figure out what you see. And this is really my main point here. So I had a spiel that I prepared to give to you. And on the way here, I was speaking to my daughter, Sophia, who's here today, and I asked her, if you were coming to this event, what would you like to hear? What would you like to learn? Because I know what I want to say, but what do you want to hear? She said a very simple thing. She said, I want people of Ukraine who are going through this war right now to feel and to understand like they're being heard. Like they're being heard. Like somebody is watching and listening. And so this is what my objective now is today, is for you to hear, not just with your ears, with your eyes. Artwork is as much of a language, art is as much of a language as anything else, except I think it's a little more precise than our words. Let's try that. I can say with my words, I would love this war to end. How many of you would agree with me? Yeah. How would you like this war to end? Do you know what I meant? No. Likely everybody here probably thinks the same thing, right? With the victory of Ukraine and Ukrainian people. Somebody else may take those words and put a different meaning in them. They may say, well, we want Ukraine to step down so this conflict can be over and give up its territories, its land. Those are words. Words are very imprecise. These are images. They don't lie. What you see in them is what I see in them, is what an artist sees in them. This is a much more precise language. We can go to the word victory. Let's say, okay, we'll agree. How about victory? We'll say we want victory for Ukraine. Well, now it depends which language you're speaking. What is victory? Victory is a triumphant imperial march down to Arc de Triomphe, right? You have just conquered a country, and here you are, you're marching. This is a victory. You can go to the Russian word победа. You can try that. And for every single one of those soldiers who represented Pobeda on the Red Square marching down, there were hundreds and thousands of dead people that soldier carried. There's a saying in the Russian language, we won the victory no matter the cost. Oh, no, 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 no. We care about the cost. Every one of these people there, every one of these artists are precious. We do not want human life to end. We don't want that cost. Let's go to another word for victory. Перемога. Overcoming. Persevering. Now this is a Ukrainian word. Isn't this a beautiful word? Isn't this an appropriate word? 3 words meaning the same thing, but with a different meaning. So look for a precision, and you'll see this in visual representation every single time. One of the artists that's in this lineup said a beautiful thing. She said, I need peace. I need light to paint, to create. I don't have that during the war. When my children are dying, when my relatives are displaced, when we're going through this tremendous horror, I don't have that. So I cannot paint during the war. But I can scream with paint. And so this is what every one of these images is. This is a scream. This is a cry. This is a cry for help. This is a cry for action. We are here to hear those. And because we're here, and because we're hearing, and because we're listening, that's enough. That is something we can do. And that's the very least. So please do more if you can. But that's the very least. Visual artwork has been used as evidence in the international war tribunals. In Rwanda, in the Milosevic tribunal, because those who don't have the words, who don't have this mic, they don't have something that amplifies this, right, their speech. They don't quite speak the right language, or they don't have the podium for them. They can still say certain things for you to be heard. You are here today, and you are giving them voice. So I want to thank every single one of you for hearing every scream that these artists have let out for you to understand. Thank you.